Beloved ascending starseed, take a gentle breath. I am Kaya Nexus, Pleiadian emissary of the Council of the Seven Sisters. What arrives now is a realignment, soft, precise, and intentional. Your abundance frequencies are awakening naturally. The universe invites you to listen, not with effort, but with an open heart. What is coming is sacred, and it unfolds in stillness. Before we continue, receive this gently. What you are feeling is not imbalance. It is sensitivity awakening. This is not emotional instability. It is cellular remembrance. Starseed, if you are here right now, it means a threshold is already behind you. Not because the world suddenly became easy, not because your days are perfectly calm, but because something inside you has stopped negotiating with what you know is real. You may have noticed it in the simplest moments. You reach for what used to satisfy you and it feels thin, like a hollow imitation of nourishment. You scroll, you plan, you chase a small reward, you consider a new purchase, a new distraction, a new upgrade, and yet the inner hunger stays untouched. And that is not failure. That is graduation. This is the exact moment when many starseeds step out of third density bargaining and into a higher frequency relationship with form, where objects are no longer worshipped as saviors but used as instruments of expression. You are not becoming less human. You are becoming more accurate, more honest, more unwilling to accept substitutes. And the Pleiadians want you to hear this clearly. The emptiness you've been sensing is not a problem to fix. It's a guidance system waking up. Because the moment you stop being bribed by the old world, your attention becomes powerful again. Your choices become sacred again. Your time becomes yours again. And that is why everything is shifting so quickly. Your relationships, your appetite, your tolerance for distortion, your need for quiet, your craving for creator contact as something lived, not theorized. Stay with this transmission, because what comes next is not just a message. It is a map to live forward without slipping back into the old hypnosis. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. There is a moment in the awakening path that feels almost abrupt. The world stops being able to buy you. It's not that you become cold. It's not that you stop enjoying beauty, comfort, laughter, music, intimacy, or creation. It's that the old incentives lose their hypnotic charge. The Pleiadians describe this as the collapse of counterfeit nourishment, when your system stops accepting imitation as food. And because you are human, the mind often misreads that collapse as something is wrong. But the deeper truth is simpler. Something is right. For many starseeds, the previous phase was defined by outward seeking. Not always greed, often a subtle attempt to feel safe, complete, or validated. More recognition, more money, more novelty, more winning, more being seen, more proof, more certainty, and yet the more you chase, the more the hunger learns to move, like a mirage that steps back each time you approach. This is how third density desire works when it's turned into a substitute for source. It never ends. It promises relief, delivers a temporary sensation, then demands more. That demand becomes the treadmill. Now something different is happening. You can be sitting in a room full of what you once wanted, comforts, plans, rewards, entertainment, and feel a strange tenderness mixed with emptiness. Not despair, not necessarily sadness, just the quiet recognition that none of it reaches what is awake in you now. The Pleiadians say, this is what happens when your identity relocates. You begin to live from a deeper center, and the surface world cannot feed that center the way it once pretended to. You don't need to shame your past self for chasing. Your past self was hungry and did not yet remember the true food. Here is the key distinction that changes everything. Form is not the source of satisfaction. Form is where satisfaction can be expressed. When you treat form as the source, you suffer. When you let source be the source, you soften. You can still create, build, earn, enjoy, succeed. But you stop making those things carry the weight of your wholeness. The Pleiadians call this restoring the order of operations. Creator contact first, expression second. When you reverse that order, your nervous system becomes a bargaining machine. When you restore it, your life becomes a canvas again. Think about the simplest example. Praise. In the old pattern, praise was nourishment. Without it, you felt invisible, uncertain, unsafe. In the new pattern, praise is pleasant, but not necessary. You can receive it without clinging. You can create without being addicted to the reaction. Or money. In the old pattern, money was identity, proof, permission. In the new pattern, money is energy, useful, neutral, workable, but not the definition of your worth. And what happens when you stop worshiping money? You become cleaner with it. You become more sovereign. You stop spending to numb. You stop earning to prove. You start aligning your resources with your truth. This is why many starseeds suddenly crave simplicity. Quiet sunlight on a wall feels more real than 1,000 stimulating images. A sincere conversation feels richer than endless social performance. A walk without a device feels like medicine. These are not signs of becoming boring. They are signs of becoming accurate. Your field is no longer interested in filler, because filler was always a coping mechanism for disconnection. And here is the cliffhanger that many don't expect. Once substitutes collapse, your attention becomes so powerful that you can no longer lie to yourself without feeling it immediately. And that is where the real transformation begins. When starseeds say, "Nothing satisfies like creator contact," they often whisper it like a confession, because part of them fears it means they will lose their humanity. The Pleiadians want to correct that misunderstanding with precision. True creator contact does not sterilize your humanity. It sanctifies it. It does not remove desire. It changes the fuel source. And when the fuel source changes, your entire life reorganizes around a new center. The deeper hunger you feel is not asking for more stimulation. It is asking for real, not more noise, truth, not more novelty, presence, not more outer upgrades, inner contact. And this is why the mind can feel confused at first. The mind was trained in a world that equates aliveness with stimulation. So when stimulation loses its charge, the mind calls it emptiness. But often, that emptiness is actually a clearing of false appetites, like your system detoxing from a substance it used for years. The Pleiadians describe creator contact as a living presence that recognizes you back. Not a belief you repeat, not a role you perform, not a spiritual identity you construct, a presence, a warmth, a silent intelligence that does not bargain, threaten, seduce, or demand performance. This is why many starseeds are exhausted by spiritual performance now. They're done with collecting teachings as trophies. They're done with explaining their sensitivity to people committed to misunderstanding it. They're done with dramatic rituals that leave them empty. They want communion, simple, consistent, lived. Here is a practical way to understand it. Information is not communion. Even the most beautiful spiritual content can become another substitute if it keeps you consuming rather than contacting. Communion is different. Communion is the slow return to the inner place where you listen more than you speak, where you soften more than you analyze, where you stop trying to control your awakening and instead allow it to integrate. This is why even a few minutes of real returning can shift the entire tone of your day. You're not imagining that. Your field is recalibrating, and as your contact deepens, something else becomes obvious. You are not one self. You are a wider intelligence experiencing itself through a localized perspective. The Pleiadians call this your wider self-field, the part of you that is not limited to a single personality, a single timeline, or a single identity built from survival. When you feel that wider self-field draw near, it doesn't arrive like fireworks. It arrives like recognition, a quiet widening, a melting of inner walls you didn't realize you were holding. This is also why your tolerance for falseness decreases. Not because you're becoming judgmental, but because your body can feel distortion more quickly. You can sense when a conversation is built on performance. You can feel when a relationship requires you to shrink. You can feel when a plan is driven by fear rather than resonance. And because your contact is stronger, you no longer need to negotiate with those signals. You simply choose differently. Now here is where many starseeds get surprised. Awakening doesn't only add, it subtracts. It subtracts your patience for self-betrayal. It subtracts your willingness to maintain divided living. It subtracts the seductive power of distractions that kept you numb. And the mind will complain, because the mind was trained to worship stimulation as proof of aliveness. But what if the quiet is not emptiness? What if the quiet is the beginning of real power? If this channel has helped you in any way, this ebook is a beautiful way to support the work and keep these messages alive. The Pleiadian map of personal transmutation was created with care to share tools that help raise your frequency, clear old patterns, and reconnect with your multidimensional self through the 7 Pleiadian phases of energetic transmutation. Inside, you'll find practical techniques, realignment exercises, vibrational protocols, and gentle rituals for consciousness expansion. By purchasing this ebook, you directly support the channel and allow this content to continue reaching more people. Limited edition. The link to get yours is in the first pinned comment. Thank you for being here and for supporting this journey. And now the question becomes unavoidable. If creator contact is the true nourishment, how do you live forward without turning awakening into another performance? Many starseeds have been repeating a phrase lately, sometimes in awe, sometimes in relief, sometimes in confusion. Nothing matters. And the Pleiadians want to place a lantern in your hand here, because that phrase can describe 2 completely different states. One is liberation, the other is shutdown. One opens love, the other avoids intimacy. And in this corridor, discernment matters more than intensity. Holy detachment is not cold. It is spacious. It is the state where you stop making the world confirm your worth. You stop insisting that outcomes must go your way for you to be okay. You stop using control as a substitute for trust. This detachment doesn't reduce your compassion, it increases it. It allows you to love without bargaining, to act without clinging, to be fully present without being hijacked by fear. It feels like a gentle exhale you didn't know you were holding. You can witness thoughts rise and fall without obeying them as commands. Numb separation is different. It often looks like detachment on the surface, but the inner fruit reveals it. Reality feels flat. The heart feels distant. The body moves through life, but the soul doesn't feel present in the movement. Irritation increases, avoidance increases, meaning feels foggy. There may be a subtle panic underneath the numbness, because something essential has been shut down. This is not enlightenment. This is often a protective strategy, sometimes triggered by overwhelm, trauma patterns, too much input, or the fear that if you feel fully, you will not survive what you find. So how do you tell the difference without turning your mind into a courtroom? You notice the fruit. Holy detachment produces warmth, clarity, kindness, patience, steadiness, and increased presence with yourself and others. It makes you more available to love. Numb separation produces flattening, avoidance, disorientation, dread, irritation, and less availability to life. The Pleiadians recommend simple diagnostics, not complicated frameworks. When you feel detached, ask, am I more compassionate right now or less? Am I more present or more absent? Do I feel clearer or foggier? Do I feel able to love or unable to feel? If you discover numb separation, do not spiritualize it. Do not call it ascending and ignore the message. Treat it like you would treat a dear friend who has been carrying too much. Simplify, rest, reduce inputs, nourish your body, sleep, hydrate, spend time in nature. Have one honest conversation with a safe human. Move gently, and return to creator contact without forcing it. Not a dramatic ritual, not a performance, a whisper of willingness. I am here. Help me come back to life. The Pleiadians say the universe responds to sincerity more than spectacle. If you discover holy detachment, honor it. Do not sabotage it by re-entering old drama to prove you're still alive. Many starseeds are so accustomed to intensity that peace feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar can be mistaken for wrong. But peace is not boredom. Peace is the baseline you forgot. Let peace educate you. Let it show you how to speak, how to choose, how to love without losing yourself. Discernment also shows up in relationships. Holy detachment lets you set boundaries without hatred, speak truth without aggression, love without rescuing. Numb separation often expresses as withdrawal, inability to communicate, or seeing other people as burdens rather than beings. If you notice resentment toward human contact, ask if you are truly refining, or simply overwhelmed and shutting down. Now here is the cliffhanger. Once you learn the difference, you stop using spirituality as an escape, and it becomes the force that makes you capable of real intimacy again. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. If this message ignited something within you and you feel the call to help carry it to others, you may become a channel member. As a member, you gain access to custom emojis and exclusive members-only videos, and your donation helps us continue building this sacred space. You may also choose to leave your offering as a super thanks. Every seed planted here becomes part of someone else's miracle. Your support is not merely financial, but an act of energetic amplification. All donations are devoted entirely to the maintenance of the channel and the creation of new transmissions and videos. And now, once you're no longer trying to escape feeling, your attention becomes your main creative technology, which means the next topic changes everything. In this new phase, many starseeds are noticing something sobering and empowering. Your attention is not neutral. It is creative currency. What you repeatedly agree with becomes the atmosphere you live in. The Pleiadians say this is one of the biggest shifts after a major clearing, because you can no longer pretend you are a passive recipient of reality. When you repeatedly agree with fear, your days begin to feel like corridors of threat. When you repeatedly agree with cynicism, love starts to feel naive. When you repeatedly agree with bitterness, life becomes a courtroom where you prosecute reality. But when you repeatedly agree with Source as the only true substance, your inner world softens into trust, not because events are perfect, but because the authority that interprets events has changed. This is where many starseeds get confused. Events can be chaotic, but power is not divided. An event can be intense and still not be the ultimate truth of your life. Third density hypnosis trains you to worship appearances. If it looks scary, it must be the final word. But higher frequency consciousness learns to witness appearances without worshiping them. You respond when response is clean. You act when action is aligned. But you do not hand your identity to the wave. So what does it mean to become deliberate with your agreements? It means simplifying inputs until you can hear your guidance again. Many starseeds have been consuming endless streams of content, commentary, predictions, spiritual videos, outrage cycles, doom spirals, then wondering why their inner knowing feels faint. The Pleiadians say, your inner knowing is not faint, it is quiet. It does not compete with noise. It waits for you to stop shouting over it. So this phase asks for stewardship. Choose what you feed. Choose what you watch. Choose what conversations you enter. Choose what you rehearse in your mind. Not from fear, from sovereignty. If your sensitivity is increasing, the consequences of what you consume will be felt faster. That is not punishment. That is feedback. Here is a practical example. You can spend 2 hours in agitation content and then call your heaviness energy attacks. But often, you simply fed your field with distortion. You can spend hours in comparison content and then call your sadness a dark night. But often, you rehearsed a story of insufficiency. The Pleiadians are not shaming you. They are empowering you. Because the moment you see attention as currency, you stop spending it unconsciously. And this also transforms prayer, meditation, and inner contact. Because you're no longer using creator contact as an emergency button. You're using it as a baseline. You're returning not to demand outcomes, but to recalibrate your agreements. What am I feeding? What am I believing? What am I practicing as truth? Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Now here's the once your inputs are clean, your life begins to reorganize around resonance so quickly it can feel like magic. Except it's simply alignment becoming efficient. When the old drives fade, many starseeds get afraid. They say, if I don't crave the old rewards anymore, will I lose motivation? Will I lose creativity? Will I become detached and indifferent? The Pleiadians answer directly, you are not losing your drive. You are being released from false propulsion. In third density, ambition often runs on proof. Prove your worth, prove your value, prove you're safe, prove you're ahead, prove you're special. And that fuel source works, for a while. It can produce results. But it also produces exhaustion, comparison, and a subtle violence against the self. It requires constant tension. Calling is different. Calling seeks expression, not proof. Calling feels clean, even when it is challenging. Calling increases self-respect. Calling doesn't need dramatic validation to feel real. It doesn't shout, it guides. This is why, after a clearing, many starseeds naturally simplify. They prefer quality over quantity, quality of conversation, quality of intention, quality of media, quality of food, quality of relationships. Their field is no longer interested in filler, not because they are superior, but because they are honest. Their nervous system can't tolerate the old compromises without immediate feedback. So what do you do when you don't feel driven by the old carrot and stick incentives? You don't force enthusiasm. You don't fabricate meaning. You allow the deeper motive to emerge. Desire for truth, desire for clean relationships, desire for integrity, desire for creator contact as a lived reality, desire to build what matches your frequency. And here is the Pleiadian refinement. The material world becomes your canvas, not your compass. You can still build a business, create content, write, teach, lead, earn, move cities, change careers, without making any of it your altar. Your altar is your inner alignment. And from that altar, your creations become coherent. Many starseeds also discover something surprising. They become more creative when they stop chasing external approval, because approval-seeking fragments the channel. It makes you calculate, it makes you perform, but when you create from alignment, the channel clears. Your work becomes transmission, not just production. This is also where discipline changes meaning. Discipline is no longer punishment. It becomes devotion. Not devotion to a rigid routine, devotion to returning to the body, returning to truth, returning to silence, returning to the inner place that is not fooled. And the more you return, the more your life begins to feel guided rather than forced. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. When calling becomes your fuel source, relationships also reorganize, and that can be the most intense part of the upgrade. One of the clearest signs of a real shift is relational. The Pleiadians say, when your center relocates, your relationships reorganize, because you can no longer maintain connections that require you to betray your frequency. In earlier phases, many starseeds carried both worlds. They tried to keep one hand in old patterns while reaching for truth with the other. This creates strain that can last months or years. The strain isn't because you're weak. It's because you cannot truly serve two centers. You can participate in the world, yes. You can enjoy it, yes. But what is your center? What are you feeding from? What is the authority inside you that decides what is worthy of your life force? As that authority relocates from outer validation to inner truth, certain dynamics become intolerable. Relationships built on manipulation, conversations built on performance, friendships that require you to shrink, partners who benefit from your confusion, family dynamics that keep you in guilt, work cultures that demand the sacrifice of your integrity. You may feel grief as you see these things clearly. That grief is not regression. It is honesty. Holy detachment in relationships looks like this. You can love without rescuing. You can set boundaries without hatred. You can speak truth without cruelty. You can leave a toxic environment without making the world your enemy. You can end an old bond while remaining compassionate. This is maturity. It is not reaction. It is clean. But there is a trap here. Some starseeds confuse sovereignty with superiority. They start looking down on those who are still chasing substitutes. The Pleiadians are firm. True creator contact does not produce contempt. It produces humility. It produces compassion. It produces the ability to witness others without needing to fix or judge them. You remember how it felt to chase. You remember that you were not wrong for being hungry. You simply didn't know where the true nourishment was. This is also where you stop explaining yourself. When your inner knowing becomes strong, you don't need external permission. You don't need to convince the skeptical. You don't need to audition your awakening. You become quieter, not because you're hiding, but because you're anchored. And the paradox is this: as you become less available for distortion, you become more available for real intimacy. Not the intimacy of merging and losing yourself, the intimacy of presence, the intimacy of truth, the intimacy of being seen without performance. Many starseeds discover they'd never actually been met because they'd never been fully honest. Now honesty becomes natural. If this channel has helped you in any way, this ebook is a beautiful way to support the work and keep these messages alive. The Pleiadian map of personal transmutation was created with care to share tools that help raise your frequency, clear old patterns, and reconnect with your multidimensional self through the 7 Pleiadian phases of energetic transmutation. Inside, you'll find practical techniques, realignment exercises, vibrational protocols, and gentle rituals for consciousness expansion. By purchasing this ebook, you directly support the channel and allow this content to continue reaching more people. Limited edition. The link to get yours is in the first pinned comment. Thank you for being here and for supporting this journey. Once relationships recalibrate, the final test is daily life. How to keep the other side as a baseline without needing drama to feel alive. Now, we arrive at the question that decides everything. How do you live forward from here? How do you keep this shift from becoming a temporary wave you remember nostalgically while slipping back into old bargaining? The Pleiadians begin with a correction. The other side is not a destination. It is a new relationship with reality. And the way you keep it is not by clinging to a feeling. It is by living a relationship. Relationship with creator contact, relationship with truth, relationship with your own inner authority, relationship with life as sacred. Many starseeds make a subtle mistake here. They treat peace as an accomplishment that must be protected by tension. But tension is the old language of control, and control is the old belief that peace is fragile. Peace is not fragile. Truth is not fragile. Creator is not fragile. What is fragile is the old identity's relationship with uncertainty. That is what you are learning to outgrow. So the primary practice is not intensity, it is returning. Returning is flexible. Returning is gentle. Returning is not a rigid routine you shame yourself for failing. Returning is loyalty. You can return in one breath. You can return while washing dishes. You can return while driving. You can return in the middle of a difficult conversation by refusing to abandon your integrity. You can return at night with a simple whisper. I am here. I am willing. Bring me back to what is real. And the Pleiadians say, consistency, not intensity, is what makes the shift permanent. The second practice is stewardship of attention. You are too sensitive now to live in constant consumption. Give yourself spaces with no commentary, no predictions, no outrage, no spiritual performance. Not empty spaces, listening spaces. The wider self becomes audible there. Your guidance becomes clear there. And when guidance is clear, choices become simple. The third practice is embodiment. Do not use your awakening to abandon your humanity. You are here to bring the divine into form. Rest when you need rest. Eat well. Hydrate. Move your body. Laugh. Cry when grief is honest. Clean your home. Pay bills. Be kind in ordinary moments. This is not less spiritual. This is spirituality made real. The fourth practice is clean creation. Build from resonance, not from fear. Create to express what you are, not to prove you are enough. When you do this, your life becomes coherent. Not perfect, but coherent. And coherence is power. And finally, the Pleiadians offer you this final refinement. You are not becoming detached from life. You are becoming unattached to distortion. You are becoming unavailable for counterfeit meaning. You are becoming loyal to the nourishment that is real. And when you stop worshiping form, you are free to enjoy it again, cleanly, without hooks, without bargains, without desperate edges. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light.